Hello. I feel like we should have stopped right there. That was the highlight so far of the last couple of days, and I'm sorry to ruin the moment, and I hope I don't ruin it too terribly. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Koan and Alvaro and all of the report team have been so generous and kind and warm and welcoming, so I greatly appreciate it, and I hope this can be a useful contribution to this conversation we've been having over the last couple of days. I had one of Juliana's energy drinks about an hour ago, so I'm feeling a little shaky. I'm very excited, so I feel like I need to jump up and down soon. I'll try and contain myself. It reminds me, when I was first starting out, John Elkington once saw me present, and he said, "You're like a weatherman on speed," which I'm not sure if that was a compliment or an insult, but I'm still trying to figure it out. So I need a little clicker thing, and I think it's here, I guess. What I'd like to talk about is this context of brands and how can brands actually move people and work with people and engage people. And one of the fundamental elements related to this is trust. I mean, and if we're talking about as Thomas and Fred and Joe Paulo and Marie have sort of framed it. Yep, sorry? I've already, oh, thank you. Thank you. Have framed it. The real future of branding and the real future of marketing and the real future of engagement requires trust. And we'll talk a little bit about trust and why trust is so fundamental to building relationships with individuals and with masses of people if we're a company or an organization or an NGO. And then the other side of trust, of course, is leadership. And I think as we look at the world and understand the challenges that we have, we're all thirsty for more leadership and a different kind of leadership. And we know that companies can play a certain role in our lives, a better, more inspired role, and we'll look at what leadership companies are about today and what some of the definitions of those might be. Okay? So that's what we'll try and do in 10 minutes. I think we're in the right room. This is the right place. Good. So let's talk about trust. And trust is such a beautiful word. What's the word in trust in Portuguese? How do you say trust in Portuguese? What? It's beautiful, beautiful in Portuguese too. And there's all different kinds of trust. And just like the word love, there's all different kinds of love and different situations. And I think we want to just talk a little bit about two different types of trust. One being thin trust in the context of brands. And thin trust is where very much brand equity is measured. How satisfied are you as a customer? What do you think of a brand? What's your relationship with that brand in a very, very narrow sense? So if we think of Starbucks, for example, as a company, thin trust is related to what your expectation is for a cappuccino from Starbucks, the price, the time, the quality, the temperature, all of those interactions, and that's very thin trust. And we can trust Starbucks a great deal, but if we talk about thick trust, something deeper, something bigger, something more comprehensive, something more dangerous in some ways, do we trust Starbucks to be involved in climate change negotiations with governments? Do we trust Starbucks to have different educational approaches to employees, as Natsura was just talking about in the approach? Do we trust Starbucks to be involved in politics and defining conversations around race, for example, which has been tried in the US somewhat successfully and unsuccessfully? And that thick trust is where the sustainable development opportunities reside. We know we need thick trust to try and change things. We know that we have to change our societies very quickly and rapidly at a faster pace than we've ever done before. We have maybe 10 years to get to a low-carbon economy. One big issue, but only one of many big issues that we're trying to tackle together as a species. And to try and do that change at a rapid pace, we need lots of thick trust to experiment, to fail, to try new things in different ways. So thick trust is critical. And we ask a question on a survey that we do, and we'll look at Brazilian results right now. How much do you trust institutions to operate in the best interest of our society? So that's how we've defined thick trust, to go beyond your own self-interest in a bigger context. And the trust in institutions in Brazil has declined dramatically, and we'll see across a bunch of institutions. If we look at trust in NGOs, trust in global companies, trust in Brazilian companies, and trust in national governments in Brazil, over the last number of years, a very rapid decline, a really steep downhill collapse, fundamentally, of what people trust. And we can see it's all institutions, regardless, and it's this intertwined crisis that we have right now. Does it sound different as I walk this way, or is it okay? Just a different kind of crisis, political, economic, and this intertwining is a fundamental insight that we have to appreciate. We're in this together. We're businesses, we're governments, we're NGOs, we're academics, we're workers. We have to find ways to try and build thick trust together. None of us can do it on our own. Thick trust in business alone doesn't get us to where we need to be. Thick trust in government alone doesn't get us to where we need to be. And we can see this connection and collapsing that happens with people when crises like this arise. So we're in a challenged situation in Brazil and other countries around the world, and business especially is in a low trust situation. Okay? Sorry. And how do we get to thick trust? Because it's very complicated, and we're very complicated individuals and people, and how do we create ways and roadmaps and mental models to try and create thicker trust over time? And it takes time. It's a very difficult thing to do. And there's a couple of interesting bits of work that have done over the years by all kinds of academics in different situations, in personal situations, in commercial situations, in situations related to what we're talking about around sustainability, and some of the work that we've done with clients too, lead us to three big buckets that get us to trust. And all three of them have to be activated at the same time in the same way. One is competency. What's the Portuguese word for competency? That sounds nice too. Competency, what you do. Are you effective? Are you capable? Are you skillful in some capacity? And so the what you do is so fundamentally important. Of course, you have to be functionally useful to people. The second big piece is integrity, which is really how you do things. Are you emotionally engaged? Are you authentic? Are you open? Are you transparent? Are you approachable? This is really fundamental as well. And then the third one is benevolence. This is the academic term, which is, do you go beyond your self-interest? Do you care about anything besides yourself or your organization? Can you demonstrate a broader interest in things beyond your own narrow transactional capacity? These three things have to happen at the same time. And if we think of examples of this, we can think of Christine Lagarde, Madame Lagarde at the IMF, very competent economist, wonderful work, perhaps not the most warmest person, but you know, a remarkable, competent person. We have the Pope, who's a remarkable recent demonstration of openness and warmth and approachability and humanness in the deepest sense. And then someone like Bill Gates demonstrates beyond self-interest by donating all of his money. Each of these leaders on their own can be okay, but when you combine this as an organization, you have the power to build trust, to move people, to lead people in new directions. So we need all three of those in balance. And not just with consumers. We can't just have the emotional conversation with consumers. It doesn't lead to it. We can't just have the functional conversation with stakeholders, NGOs, or investors. We need all of these things working together. The competency piece, the what you do, the integrity piece, the how you do it, and the benevolence piece, the why you do it. What's the purpose behind it? And lots of conversations so far we've had on meaningfulness and purpose and how we get to a different place of connecting with people. And one of the biggest challenges so far in sustainability is that in our approach of marketing, we've taken marketing techniques as we've used marketing for the last 50 years and tried to sell people things that were greener or more ethical or different. And we did it poorly for the first 10 or 15 years, and we also did it to the wrong population and the wrong audience. So we did some work a number of years ago, which I think Raphael from BBMG presented last year. People were here, but BBMG is a brand agency that's a partner of ours, and we did this segmentation to try and re-understand the marketplace and where the opportunities for engaging people in different ways. And these people here in the bottom right-hand, this is a map that shows percentages of Brazilians who are high on sustainability issues and also high on materialism. They like the marketplace, they're interested in style, they like shopping, they like brands. And we have one segment in the bottom right-hand quadrant called advocates. And these advocates are the deeper greens. They're interested in sustainability, but they're not interested in consumption. They're not interested in the marketplace. And what we did as a community of businesses for many years is market to those people about sustainability. And they didn't trust business, They're not interested in that kind of advertising or that engagement, and we've wasted a lot of time, and we didn't understand where the opportunity was. The aspirationals in the top right-hand quadrant is a group of people that are engaged on sustainability for the first time, sort of initially interested, but they're also very deeply into brands and consumption and shopping and the marketplace overall and the experiences that happen in the marketplace. So we've got, for the first time, a group of people who are open to having a conversation with business in a different way, in a deeper way, and being able to act upon it. So that's exciting. That's important to break through the demand side. So what does that mean for leaders? Well, I mean, first of all, one of the challenges we have, especially in a low-trust environment, is that companies, especially sustainability functions in companies, have done a poor job in developing recognition for their work. And not superficially, not a superficial recognition, but a deeper recognition as to what they stand for, what they deliver, what they do, and that has important value externally and also internally to drive greater support for ongoing sustainability commitments. So recognition is critical. And we did a survey with Alvaro and Reports about 2 weeks ago, and some of you may have taken part in the survey, but we asked people in the room and who were at the conference, who are leading companies in Brazil that integrate and do a good job of marketing and sustainability, that are able to be recognized leaders externally. And here's the results, and João Paulo, get ready. You ready? And of course, Natura up top. And it makes sense, given the remarkable work that the company is doing, but there are a whole bunch of other companies that are mentioned by us in the room in this community that view these companies as doing a great job on sustainability. And there's a long list of companies, and Natura is clearly embodying key elements of leadership, but there are many others. And we'll be writing these results up and sharing with everybody next week the full results, but there's power in understanding why certain companies are recognized as leaders. And in all the work we've done over the last 15 years on leadership and sustainability, we see that there's a very simple framework that can be applied. One relates to this notion of purpose and vision and strategy. We need a big idea. We need a big framework to try and understand all of the work that we do, our services and our products, and how they connect to something bigger. That's a critical component. Very difficult to execute, but a critical piece. Performance. This is all about performance. In the long term, there's no way we can underperform. We have to be transparent, we have to be open in what we're doing, and perform strongly. And thirdly, participation. 3 Ps. It's very fancy. I don't know how it works in Portuguese. Can we get to 3 Ps in Portuguese? Is it possible? Maybe. Participation relates to not just advertising and communications, but deeper engagement. How do we involve people on an ongoing basis and at scale? And very difficult to do at scale. Very, very challenging, but we understand we're at a moment right now with technology, as Yakov mentioned. Our ability to connect with people has never been greater. Our ability to connect deeply with people, I don't know. Is it possible? Can we find a way to connect people deeply at scale, millions of us at a time in some way? And this is the architecture that I think companies like Natura are expressing so far, and that we need to emulate and learn from and drive forward. That's it. Thank you very much.